This lesson is about solving trig equations with a double angle. This is the formula for double angle. For sine 2 theta, only one formula, so just use it. But for cosine 2 theta, you have three choices. You need to know which formula you got to use for specific trig equations. For A, for sine 2x, you will turn into 2 sine x cosine x, then plus sine x equal to 0. For sine x cosine x, you can count this as a quadratic pattern. So common factor is sine x. 2 cosine x plus 1 equal to 0. Therefore, sine x equal to 0 and cosine x equals minus 1 both sides, then divided by 2. That is negative 1 over 2. So we need to draw the diagram. So for sine x equal to 0, this x is a quadrantal angle. You could say this sine is a 0, sine is a 0. X equals 0 pi 2 pi. For cosine x equals negative 1 over 2, since this is a negative, go to second and then the third quadrant. The reference angle equals pi over 3, 60 degrees. Therefore, x equals 2 pi over 3 and 4 pi over 3. Let's go to D. We need to change sine 2x into 2 sine x cosine x equal to cosine x. We count sine x cosine x as quadratic pattern, so get equal to 0. 2 sine x cosine x minus cosine x equal to 0. Common factor, that's cosine x. You have 2 sine x minus 1 equal to 0. So you have cosine x equal to 0. And 2 sine x minus 1 equal to 0. This gives to you sine x equals 1 over 2. For cosine x equal to 0, check the domain. Domain is between negative pi to pi. This is the diagram. Cosine x, which means the first coordinate, CST, equal to 0, CST. This will be negative pi over 2. This is a pi over 2. Therefore, your x equals pi over 2 and negative pi over 2. For sine x equals 1 over 2, positive go to first and then the second quadrant. Your reference angle equals 30 degrees, that is pi over 6. So x equals pi over 6 and 5 pi over 6. Let's go to E. You have cosine 2x equals cosine x. For cosine 2x, you have three formulas to use. Which one you need to use? Remember, your goal is to create quadratic pattern equations. So if I have a cosine x over here, you need to get cosine square x. This one has a cosine square x. Therefore, we need to change cosine 2x into 2 cosine square x minus 1, then equals cosine x. This is a quadratic pattern. Therefore, you need to get equal to 0. We will move cosine x to the left side. You will get 2 cosine square x minus cosine x minus 1 equal to 0. Then we do ninja x. 2 times negative 1 is a negative 2 over 2 over 2. B will be negative 1. For negative 2, I can get negative 2 times 1. Negative 2 add 1 equals negative 1. So reduce. Negative 1 over 1. Then you need to write down the variable. Variable is cosine x. Cosine x. So bottom up, write down the equation. 2 cosine x plus 1 times cosine x minus 1 equal to 0. So you get 2 cosine x plus 1 equal to 0, or cosine x minus 1 equal to 0. Cosine x equals negative 1 over 2, or cosine x equal to 1. For cosine x equal to 1, CST, it's 0 and 2 pi. So we write down x equals 0 to pi. For cosine x equals negative 1 over 2, reference angle is 60 degrees, which means pi over 3. Negative 1 over 2, all students take calculus. It will go to the second and then the third quadrant. So you need to use this pattern and this pattern, n equals 3. So x equals 2 pi over 3 and 4 pi over 3. Let's go to G. Cosine 2x plus 4 cosine x equals negative 3. X is between 0 and 2 pi. For this cosine 2x, since in the equation you are given cosine x, you need to use this formula so that you can create a quadratic pattern trig equations. Cosine 2x, you will get 2 cosine square x minus 1. Then minus 4 cosine x equals negative 3. Quadratic pattern. That's the reason cross the river, change sign, get equal 0. So you have 2 cosine square x minus 4 cosine x minus 1 plus 3. Combine like terms, 2 cosine square x minus 4 cosine x plus 2 equal to 0. Since this is a quadratic pattern, we need to do common factor first. Cosine square x. Negative 4 cosine x will be 2 cosine x plus 1 equal to 0. So we go to ninja x. 1, 1, 1. Then here's negative 2. So we get negative 1, negative 1. Your variable is cosine x. Cosine x. So you get 2 cosine x minus 1 times cosine x minus 1, that's cosine x minus 1 squared equal to 0. So you get the cosine x minus 1 equal 0, cosine x equal to 1. For cosine x equal to 1, check this diagram. You will get this. So your answer will be x equal to 0 and 2 pi. Let's go to H. 1 minus cosine 2x minus sine square x equals 1/2. X is between negative pi and pi. So this is the diagram for negative pi to pi. Look at the equation. We have a sine square x here. Therefore, for this cosine 2x, you got to use this formula. You will get 1 minus parentheses 1 minus 2 sine square x minus sine square x equals 1/2. Therefore, due to the distributive property, you will get 1 minus 1 plus 2 sine square x minus sine square x equals 1/2. Combine like terms. This is a 0. And combine these two, you will get sine square x equals 1/2. This is a power pattern equation. Therefore, sine x equals square root 1/2. Don't forget plus or minus. That equals plus or minus square root of 2/2. Positive and negative square root of 2/2, which means sine x will go to all 4 quadrants. The reference angle, that equals pi/4. So you can get x equals pi/4. Second quadrant is 3 pi/4. Third quadrant is negative 3 pi/4. Fourth quadrant is negative pi/4.